Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our curriculum committee meeting. We are discussing instructional technology today, and we have special guests, Ryan Maloney and Jackie Gilmartin, and of course, Dr. Feeney, and our board members, Deb and Adam Block. So without further ado, we look forward to learning about our instructional technology today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us to your committee meeting this morning. We're happy to join you and share a little bit about instructional technology here at Port Washington Union Free School District. There's been a lot of work and growth over the last 3 years, I would say. And so we want to kind of take a few minutes to talk about that growth and how it's positively impacted our students and teachers. So without further ado, we'll begin. Okay. All right, thank you. So instructional technology is the use of technology and technology processes to facilitate learning and increase performance. This is going to be the focus of our presentation here today. What we wanted to do was ground our presentation in the district's vision and mission, both in terms of the portrait of a graduate, but also in terms of the way we envision using technology to further a learning community where students are engaged in a challenging curriculum that is focused on inquiry-based and hands-on learning, so that students are comfortable using technology and students take responsibility for their own educational success. We focus on the portrait of a graduate to inform our decisions, whether it be software, hardware, student devices, as well as professional development of our staff and faculty. Over the last 5 years, there's been quite a large shift in the way in which, or the amount to which, instructional technology is used in the classroom. What we focus on in terms of our student profile is focusing on supporting students to become digitally or technologically literate, digitally connected. They could use the tools to become skilled creators, as well as have their expectation met of anytime, anywhere learning. We also focus on the fact that our students now are raised by digital natives, meaning that students in our classroom, their parents grew up with technology. We now expect, and students expect, highly personalized content to support where they are in their instructional progress. Of course, we want to always provide opportunities for curiosity and for the need to construct knowledge through their own kinesthetic interactions or play. And that leads us to the concept of enjoying gamification or utilizing games within education to support the acquisition of skills and knowledge. Again, it's our job to facilitate transformative learning.
With the use of the digital tools that we have here in district, we've seen a large shift in instructional technology and how that has played out in the classroom in instructional ways. So we've seen this shift growing over the years. So we saw sort of that begin back in 2013 when we started to incorporate our Chromebooks and Google Apps for Education and becoming more accessible to students and teachers on a daily basis. We've also, as we moved through the years, we've noticed that we've gone from moving from a more individualized classroom learning environment to collaborative learning. From students being passive learners to active learners. So they have more tools at their fingertips to be able to be an active participant in their learning process. We have also noticed that we've gone from sort of a one-size-fits-all model to being able to differentiate learning in a lot of different modalities and opportunities using all of these digital tools, making it easier for teachers to differentiate. We talked about earlier on the slide previously that there's a high expectation for personalized learning in the classroom. So digital tools really helps us to accomplish that. We've also moved from more of a teacher-centered learning environment to a student-centered learning environment, where the teacher is just a facilitator. They're there to help students. Students are transforming and learning and having the tools at their fingertips to be able to control their learning process as well.
Okay, so in this slide, what we're really trying to eliminate is the trends in the technological tools that are now part of the landscape for students and teachers. We've broken these tools up into three major categories, that being collaboration, interactivity, and assessment. And we're going to take a look at each of those. We're going to try to understand a little bit better the meaning of those three things, and then some examples in terms of software that have been selected to meet those expectations, and then student work product that we can share with you that they have constructed inside those softwares. So the first one we're going to take a look at is collaboration.
So with the introduction of digital tools, we're able to see more real-time interactivity and collaboration between students and teachers, and students together and within groups. We've seen this progression over time, like we talked about previously, having the devices in the classroom, having access to all of these digital tools at any moment in the classroom really allows for a great deal of collaboration. And not only do we see this in the classroom, we're seeing this amongst our staff as well. Teachers are able to collaborate and share lessons between buildings on grade levels. They're able to share and collaborate outside of our school community as well. So we're able to utilize all of these wonderful tools. We saw a real spike during the pandemic of a lot of online collaboration coming together, being able to share our resources so that we can have all these amazing lessons that our students were able to connect with while they were at home, remote learning. And then that has really transformed and continued now that we're back in full time and we're seeing our students now with their one-to-one being able to have that collaboration at all moments. So where we went from having just an interactive whiteboard in our classroom, we're able to now have that interactivity at any moment using our devices, using a lot of these software tools. We spent a lot of time in the summer of 2020. There were instructional committees that were formed at all levels. I sat on all of those committees to help determine how we were going to continue these trends as we made that progression back to school. And we worked together to decide what tools were going to be effective to help our teachers continue that transition back in. And there was a lot of collaboration at all levels to be able to decide and continue that growth once we came back in.
And it was a complicated process, if you can imagine, both because we were coming out of the starting blocks at that time in terms of a one-to-one or ubiquitous instructional set of software tools. It was also the pandemic. We were also implementing one-to-one, so the hardware was also new to many of our users. And then, of course, the professional development had to lay on top of it before we could even start to leverage the power of some of these tools. The good news, and I would like to shine some light on it, is that Jackie's work has started way back in 2013 with the adoption and implementation of Google Apps for Education, as it was called back then, where we went and we trained every teacher, whether through groups or one-on-one or both, and took them through the process. Many of our teachers also got certified as Google trainers, Google instructors. So that piece about collaboration tools, about structuring of classrooms through Google Classroom, the utilization of the productivity tools like Docs and Sheets and so on, presenter or presentation or whatever it's called, Google Docs. It started in 2013, and we're going to hear more about that into the presentation, but I think it's really important that we stitch together the sequence of events that got us to where we are today. Thank you, Jackie.
Okay. So interactivity has really grown over the years, and this is my 17th year as staff developer here in Port Washington. So I have seen this growth over the years, where when I first started, we were just starting to have interactive whiteboards in the classroom, where today we can find interactive whiteboards in every instructional space. We now have a one-to-one collaboration, so that now where students once only came up to interact one by one with lessons on the interactive whiteboard, we're now able to share lessons onto everyone's device in the classroom. Students can follow through, they can become interactive in those lessons on their devices. They're not just sitting there gaining their knowledge. They are an active participant in their learning on that device. They're still coming up, they're using the interactive whiteboard, but it now gives us a more cohesive opportunity for students to be able to be active learners in the classroom in real time, teachers getting immediate feedback on student progress and how they're taking in that content and that knowledge and how they can engage their lessons as they move forward using all of those tools that we have available to them, which sort of leads us right into our assessment piece. So, instructional technology is all about balance. It's about finding the right tools that are gonna work for you and for your students in the classroom. So with all of these tools that we have, teachers are selecting the ones that work best for them and their students. And we've made such a shift from sort of pen and paper assessments to now online assessments. And we're not looking just at, we're looking at formative assessment. We're looking at assessments that we're seeing on a daily basis. Exit tickets. We're looking at quick ways to assess our students in the moment so that our teachers are able to take that data and they're able to inform instruction.
So in terms of assessment, whether it's the NWEA that we're expanding to, we did last year, I believe, for the first time, expanded to 3 times a year, from bookending the year to 3 times, as well as now moving towards computer-based testing for 3 through 8. But then also the data that can be acquired through these third-party delivery systems, all of these assessments are supportive of the teacher's process to personalize that content, that delivery, that next assessment. The next bar here, if you will, is game-based assessment. And we talked about gamification earlier when we were talking about some of the trends or the things that we're reacting to in terms of expectations of our students, parents, and teachers. And game-based assessments is something that is an important part that we should take a real deep look at. But beyond game-based assessments and gamification, there is also the concept of esports. So as we continue to look at the landscape and expand our understanding of how we support our students and teachers, how we prepare our students for college and career readiness, and as a parent, it would be almost unheard of 10 years ago to sit here in front of you and talk about gaming as a significant and real vocation or job or industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry now, and students do this for their careers. There is a college pathway, if you will, as well. So I think that this is a space that we need to understand better and support, and so that's something that we wanted to add to this presentation. The next light blue segment at the bottom that talks about data is really that combination of the top two, talking about the assessments from paper and pencil to digital, going from digital but maybe relatively mundane to something that's very dynamic like gaming. Then with all those results, what do we do with them? How can we leverage that information to, again, inform instruction, inform our selection of tools, and which could be software, but also could be hardware. In fact, one of the conversations that I've had with Dr. Feeney recently is that we should really maybe take a deep, hard look at the need to, when it's time to refresh our Chromebooks, to look at touchscreen on our Chromebooks. And that might be something that really would be a valuable tool to add even more meaning to assessments, to interactivity, to collaboration. So we continue that conversation. Jackie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I just think that as we move forward in our presentation, we'll touch on this a little bit more deeply.
Okay. Okay, so Jackie did mention it earlier that in 2013 through, I would say, 2018, it was a slow ramp up for our district for Chromebooks for students and iPads. We were going with a very traditional framework, which was a cart framework, where we would put 30 devices in a cart and we would push that as a resource into the classroom. And they would be signed out within the school building. At that time, we also had a traditional row and column type computer lab as well. So it was very much about the prior methodology of delivery, and we started the migration. So it was a slow ramp up, and then in 2018 to 2020, there was an accelerated ramp up, but we were not a one-to-one just yet. And then finally, through 2020 to 2021, we became a one-to-one. And I think that this is important because when we talk about tools like connecting with Google Classroom, we're talking about having the resources, the infrastructure, as well as the delivery system. So as a background, that was some of the background on the infrastructure. And then we were able to implement in 2013, we began our process of teaching, showing, training our teachers and students to work with Google Classroom and Google Apps for Education.
And Google Classroom has really become the hub for our teachers in connecting with students and sharing resources and lessons. And we started off in 2014 when Google Classroom was first introduced with about 50 Google Classrooms that year. We are now looking at over 3,000 classrooms on average per year that are being utilized across our district. So it is amazing to see how that progression has developed and how our teachers are using it to share resources, to share lessons, to encourage collaboration and projects. So it's not just all individualized work that's being shared through Google Classroom. Students are working in groups. They're working to develop presentations. They're learning so many different skills, how to communicate with their teachers and their peers through shared editing and peer editing through all of these digital resources. It's also a place for, as a parent to come and check in on your child and see what's due, what's coming down the pike, how are they doing with their work. I know as a parent of a middle school and a high school student, I'm looking to see what's coming down the road. What can I be there to help support them in? How are they doing? So, and it opens up opportunities for me to check in with my children's teachers to say, hey, I see they might be struggling this, or I see this is going well. So it opens up that communication for parents and guardians, as well as for students and teachers to be able to see what's there, how we can communicate, and being able to provide that timely feedback for our students. I think what we want to do next is we would like to show some student examples at different levels. You can kind of see some of the digital tools that we are using in the classroom. Right. So on the elementary level, we are seeing a wide variety of tools that are being used. The first one we're going to let's go to, sorry, this is a Jamboard activity. So Jamboard is Google's whiteboard tool. This is customizable. So this is an example of a math AIS lesson, could be used in a lower elementary math lesson as well. So you'll see here that on student iPads or on a Chromebook, they're learning about hundreds, tens, and ones. The teacher can model with showing how they rolled, and then now they have to decide. They're clicking and dragging to show how many hundreds, how many tens, how many ones. There's multiple pages within this document, so up at the top, you're able to scroll through, and then students are able to work collaboratively. So this is sort of part, they're rolling on their desk with their dice, and then they're coming to their device and they're being able to show how they're going to manipulate those tools to show their answers. Teachers are able then to be in on their document. So a teacher can be sitting with a group, they can see what's going on. A teacher can be in another part of the room and be able to actually be live into this lesson as a group is working on it. Another great tool is Book Creator. So Book Creator allows our students to create online books. This is an example of a book created by kindergartners at Salem. So you'll see here that what this teacher did, so we blended students actually writing and drawing physically, and then the teacher taking a snapshot of their work and inserting it into the book. The beautiful piece about Book Creator is that you can record into it. So we can hear.
I can say it. I can play with someone. Excellent.
So this is such a dynamic tool because this gives students the opportunity to hear themselves. They're able to hear their classmates. We can share this out with our parents and our guardians so that they're able to see a glimpse into the work that's going on in the classroom, and they're able to actually hear their voices. So, I mean, this is just precious. This is a great example of just a way that we're able to work with these tools. At different levels, Book Creator will allow for collaboration as well. So you can have multiple students working on a book together at the same time, or they can create their own. There's so many dynamic tools within Book Creator. They can bring in images, they can draw in it, they can type, they can bring in video. So it's such a wonderful tool for them to be able to express and show and the content that they have created and share their knowledge. Maybe we'll do one more. So let's do the Google Slides one. So this is an example of a choice board. So choice boards have been around for a long time. Some of us remember paper choice boards. So sometimes, you get spelling words. Think on the elementary level. You get spelling words and the teacher gives you a list of different ways that you can use those spelling words for homework. Maybe you're going to write sentences. Maybe you're going to write the words so many times. Now they've gone digital. So now when we look at this digital choice, so this is a Pourquoi choice board. You'll see that they have 5 different activities and an exit ticket here. So they're going to start with the first activity. They click on activity 1. It brings them to a slide. And what's great is now the teachers are incorporating other digital tools within it. So they can go into an ed puzzle. They're going to watch a video and answer questions. You can close out whatever you did. But what it is it's nice that it is incorporating a variety of digital tools within one activity choice board. Now, not all of the choices in the choice board have to be digital. Some may be digital and some may link to paper and pencil activities. But it's giving students opportunities to decide what they want to do and what works for them and how they want to learn best. Okay, so if we go back to our presentation, maybe we'll go to the middle school examples. Okay, there we go. All right, so when we talk about gamification a little bit, if we click on the boom cards, Boom Cards is a software product that we do purchase through the district. K-12 teachers use this. So these are just more ways for our students to review content that's being done in the classroom. So they're gonna get immediate response and feedback when they go ahead and they go ahead and they type in their answers, they're able to submit it, they're able to know right away if they got it right or wrong, and then they're able to move on. So we can find Boom Card activities for every content area at every grade level. Yes.
In that regard, in my mind, unless you can correct me, getting it right, they move on. Is there a way of reteaching or understanding or helping the child understand if they have not gotten it right before they move on?
It depends on the activity and how it's set up. So in some instances, there may be prompts in there to help them try again, or it will give them just an opportunity to make another selection and move on.
Okay, it could be individualized, but perhaps not in terms of helping them make progress. Otherwise, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, the system
absolutely.
may not provide an automated remediation tool, but that data would go back to the teacher, and the teacher would do a small group instruction because probably more than one student has a similar challenge with a concept or a skill, and they would go back and reteach that in a small group and bring those students back up to the level with the rest of the students, and then move them forward and then reissue, let's say, another activity that then gives them more assessment data to know if they actually totally understood it and can apply on their own and master it.
So it's like having a TA where the work is graded for them and then she knows which kids she has to go after.
Absolutely. So in the back end of Boom Cards, the teacher is able to see by whole class or by individual student which questions students were grasping. Maybe there's ones we see trends where many did not get the right answer, so now they know how to focus instruction, like Frank was talking about. Let's go to the Nearpod, the blue one. So Nearpod is one of the tools that we purchased after the pandemic, and you can click yes, continue. Nearpod allows for teachers to stream a lesson to all their student devices at once when you're doing a live lesson. It can also be shared with students to do as an individual lesson as well, say for homework or within class. What we love about Nearpod is that we can incorporate so many tools into one lesson. So this is an example of a Greek mythology lesson. So as we kind of scroll through this, it kind of talks about what's going to happen in the lesson, so students are able to understand if they're doing this on their own, what's going to happen. They're going to connect, they're going to practice together, and they're going to practice independently. As we continue to move forward, you can go ahead. All right, so what we're going to do kind of gives a little bit of information on Greek mythology, what we're going to be focusing on. The next slide brings in a vocabulary video. So vocabulary is another product that we do purchase through the district, and it's teaching concepts through hip hop music. So it's very engaging. It allows
we believe is monotheistic, many gods and deities. This one, that one, and more. Indeed, you wear Nikes on your feet. Yeah, Nike to me is the goddess of victory. Things we don't understand, what do? We come up with a story for it.
Okay, so if we want to pause this, we can be fun. It's great because vocabulary really takes content, brings it into a meaningful way that it's able to, students love it, they grasp these songs. So then once we've watched this video, we've learned a little bit about Greek mythology, we can now come in and do a little matching activity to see if we can match the Greek god with their skills. And they can come through. So now we really we're interacting with the content, teachers are getting their feedback, and teachers will get reports on all of this student feedback as we move along. There are different pieces to collaborate within Nearpod. It really brings a lot of different skills into it. The other thing I do want to show, because this is very impressive, we go to the Google Slides. art teachers at the middle school have really embraced technology. And what we're able to see here is they did digital bird mosaic projects. And they used Google Slides. Students used tools within Google Slides they take a Google image and they were able to replicate it with shapes and colors. And these are phenomenal. And the amount of time and work and skill that students learn to create these images is so impressive. And keep scrolling through, and then once we get past the digital bird mosaics, there's some other types of mosaics. So they took some different images and are able to create these projects.
Are these our students?
These are our students, yes.
That you're showing?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're phenomenal. They did some polyline portraits as well. These are self-portraits. They are absolutely amazing. And I do know my son actually did a project like this just recently in art, and it takes a lot of time and skill, and the great opportunity that our art teachers have to work with these students to be able to teach them how to use these tools to create such beautiful art is amazing. All right, okay. All right, and now we'll just move into some of our high school. We can let's go to the book creator. So we can see how book creator can be used at a different level. So this was a high school social studies class that was studying about the Industrial Revolution, and now the students were writing a children's book about the Industrial Revolution. So now you can see how they took all of the content they had learned during that unit and they had to apply it to write a story, incorporating all of those skills and knowledge about the Industrial Revolution, finding images that are going to connect with the story, the layout, and be able to present this is just truly amazing. Now you can, if the Read to Me feature will actually read the book to someone, so you're able to hear it. It's more, it's a digitized voice, but it will definitely read it to you.
We were less excited about new machines than we were before. Our heads were small enough to fit in the machines and work with all the smaller inside parts. But sometimes, some heads weren't small enough, and those heads don't end up working on the machines anymore.
And once again, we're able to share this with a larger audience. So these books are not just shared in the classroom, we can now share them with parents. We can send them home to grandparents. We're able to expand our knowledge base. We can also look at the middle one, which is a Google Drawings. And this is an example of now we've taken that, graphic organizer, which we always did in paper and pencil. Now we can digitize it. Now we're in Google Drawings. We're able to, this is a world language activity, and now they're able to come in and they're able to organize their information digitally. They can collaborate on this with other students. Teachers are able to give comments and feedback in the moment as they're working on it in class. So just lots of different versatile ways to be able to utilize all the tools in the classroom.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. And thank you to the teachers and students that use the tools and students that produce such wonderful things. Part of what makes that happen is the network infrastructure and the devices that students have in their hands. This slide looks to show the growth that the district has had over the last number of years, including the pandemic years. And you can see that there's been a tremendous amount of growth. You can see that in 2018 and 2019, there was a ramp up, which was fortuitous because it allowed us to not have to buy so many Chromebooks during the pandemic, which if you remember, there was a supply chain issue, so access to those resources were also a challenge. Next, we wanted to talk about some of the software, but we wanted, as we have been, but we wanted to talk about how the software that was selected through the committee process was being utilized over the last couple of years. Obviously, data is more or less self-explanatory, and what we're trying to demonstrate here is the trend towards increased utilization. That being said, I think it's also a fair statement to share that through this year, we're seeing less utilization because this is the first year from September that we've been in class with students without any COVID protocols. So in the beginning of the year, they were focusing very much on those interactions in the classroom, the hand-eye coordination, working with paper and pencil, crayons, and a lot of the things that they just couldn't do over the last couple of years as a class. So they wanted to make a priority to re-engage with some of those things. But we're very happy with what's happening in the classroom. Again, the adoption of these tools is not an everyday all the time. The utilization of a Chromebook in a classroom or an iPad in a classroom is not every day all the time. And remember, we have pre-K students, we have K students who need to have the full experience of those grade levels, including building with blocks and coloring with crayons. So we're very happy. We continue to work with the curriculum office and central office to develop a district-wide process to support the continued selection, evaluation, and annual evaluation of these softwares to make sure that we have the software that support best practice, the softwares that support the teachers in the classroom, and our student needs. We can go to the next page where we show, again, a positive trend showing increased utilization. In this case, we're talking about specifically Book Creator. Next, we look at a content provider in Discovery Education and the utilization there, both through students and teachers. Finally, we get to one of the most important aspects of our jobs, which is professional development. Because when we teach the skill, they have it. So professional development is always the acquisition of tools for the future. So it's a never-ending attempt. Jackie, did you want to shed some light on any of these items?
Sure. So as one of the district technology staff developers, I have been here, like I said, for 17 years, and I'm so fortunate that we were able to hire a second staff developer back in 2020. And now that we have increased our staff, we're able to increase the amount of professional development that we're able to conduct throughout the district. And we have always focused on the just-in-time training, which allows us to be there for teachers when they need us. So they may call and say, I'm doing a lesson at the end of the week, can you come and help me organize this and put it together? We are able to work with the principals to create small group trainings for grade levels or for pockets of teachers that they find they need development in at different times during the school year. We are always looking for creative ways to be able to offer professional development to our teachers. You know, now that we will meet remotely with teachers as well, so it makes it easier. We can get in touch with them whenever we need to. So we're always there for our teachers when they need us. We also expanded our opportunities to online professional development with the purchase of Otis for Educators last year, which offers teachers asynchronous professional development. So not only does the program come with a wide variety of professional development, not just technology, but in all different areas as well. But Oz and I have created our own online courses that we have populated into Otis for Educators for our new teacher training, for different products that we have within the district. So it allows teachers to be able to log in and do professional development at their own convenience. So whether they want to do it during a prep period, they want to do it after school, on the evenings, in the weekends, they're able to connect. They're able to get CTLE hours if they need to for that as well. So that's an added bonus for our teachers. We have Otis for Educators, not for teachers. Our EAs and our Ts are able to log in. We've also added our clerical staff. So we are able to have this professional development opportunities expanded even past our in-person opportunities as well. We work with principals and directors to offer different staff development on Staff Development Wednesdays, depending on the needs. We also work with the curriculum office to offer trainings during superintendent's conference days. We often do surveys to see where the needs are for teachers and the expectations of things that they'd like to learn throughout the school year. And we also have been working very closely with the Teacher Center for as long as I have been here, and even before that, offering co-sponsored technology courses. It's hard to imagine that it was, I think it was back in 2012, 2013, when we first started our first blended online staff development course, which allowed teachers to, this became a 3-credit in-service class, which was never offered before. Everything was either an 8-hour or a 16-hour 1-credit class. It was an opportunity for teachers. When we started with the Chromebook initiative and Google Apps for Education, it was a way to help support our teachers to learn how to infuse this technology into their classroom. So we are now on, we will be launching our 13th blended class this spring. We run them twice or 3 times in a year, giving teachers an opportunity to take them. We started off with a blended environment where we met every other week in person, and then the off weeks we were online. And we have slowly moved to a fully online course now because of the pandemic. And it's a wonderful opportunity. I have to say, it is an opportunity for us to work with teachers to see the amazing content that they create for their students, and that they're not just creating it for the course. These teachers are taking these lessons that they're creating during the blended course and immediately infusing them into their classroom. And we're getting that feedback and how it's being resonated with the students in class, and the collaboration amongst the teachers, and the opportunity now to work with teachers from all over the district, different levels, and being able to see what's being done is just a really wonderful opportunity for us, the staff developers and the teachers that participate in these courses. So we will be continuing to evolve these courses as we move along and continue that collaboration.
I would just mention that as part of the professional development, that not only all the things that Jackie said, but I think specifically it's important to say that it doesn't end at the end of the school year, that we do summer camps and summer training for teachers where there will be an intensive STEM camp for teachers, and we will show them a plethora of different STEM opportunities through entry-level robotics like Dot and Dash, to coding solutions, to many different STEM components that they could then turnkey right into their classroom come September. So I wanted to just illuminate that it doesn't end when the kids have a wonderful summer break, that we continue working with our teachers and we continue this intense planning and forward looking and bringing in the best that we can find. So whether we're going to conferences or we're staying on top of our relationships and in different organizations or scholarly journals in the subject of instructional technology, we continue to bring those best practices here to port. In terms of moving forward, educational technology, we want to continue pushing and working with educational technology, K through 12, which we've done a great deal of, working coding, robotics, 3D modeling and printing, manufacturing and vocational arts. Moving forward, this is a huge component that we're actively engaged in here in central office, which is the refresh cycles. We talked about all the great things that happened through the pandemic, all the growth, all the increase and the benefits that we receive from that. But now we need to maintain that on some sort of cycle. So talking about network, Wi-Fi, cybersecurity appliances, Chromebooks, whether we bring touchscreens and styluses in, iPads and Windows desktops. We're actively working on what that looks like. In addition, we also have a tremendous focus on integration and automation. We have always made integration a priority, and automation a priority, but now the level of sophistication and the breadth and the depth by which we have to operate to support all these softwares, all the students, all the devices, all the networks, anytime, anywhere. This is a different level of expectation, and then you couple that with cybersecurity, and you have yourself a lot of work to do. In terms of being ready for tomorrow, the number one thing beyond the refresh cycles that we're looking to work through with central office this year is the Associate Director for Instructional Technology. As you can see, and I have been blessed with having Jackie's capacity, knowledge, experience. Also this year, she was awarded with an administrative stipend for instructional technology to help in just the way that she has and continues to do. But that this role needs to be expanded to a full-time role, and those in the community might remember, and the board might remember my conversation with the board last December, where we talked a bit about this. And some of the reasons that we think this is so important is the instructional software. So we're managing over 170 titles, about 70 to 80 of them are a deep integration, automation, and systems integration, but that doesn't stop there in terms of the curriculum alignment and so on, and the training and so on. Then we have what's very important to note, the computer science and digital fluency learning standards, which are supposed to be adopted by all school districts in New York State by
September of 2024.
2024. So we are actively engaged in this process. We've always been engaged, but with this new clarity of these standards, we have some work to do, and this is a large undertaking because we're really looking to stripe across all grade levels a significant and measurable component for digital literacy and fluency and the integration of STEM skills across the curriculum. And finally, STEM and Tech Ed, which is part and parcel to how we attain the learning standards that New York State has put forward. And then finally, computer-based testing, so making sure the internet's fast enough, the Wi-Fi is readily available, and always on, always ready. The data is flowing and is accurate and complete. Devices are of the right year and so on. And of course, security both for the students, the testing environment, but also the network and the data. So today we had an opportunity to come sit with you here in the curriculum committee and talk a good deal a bit about instructional technologies. We talked about the trends that have shifted our focus. We talked about the major components in terms of our software that we bring, whether it be collaborative, interactive, and to support assessments. We talked about how we want to move forward and what tools, what professional development that we do to bring the future here to Port. And we leave you with this slide, which is kind of just an overall visual to help articulate all the moving parts, or at least a good portion of the moving parts that we work with every day to support all teachers and students across the district.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm assuming that was the end.
That is the end.
That's a lot. Yeah, thank you. This was comprehensive and detailed and really shows the level of, there's so many layers to IT and what it looks like in the classroom. So thank you very much for kind of explaining it very thoroughly. As the chair, I get to pass off the questions because I don't want to ask any of them.
Want to do that? Questions first?
Do you want to go back and forth? Maybe like one or
Why don't
two, one or
you,
two?
and then I was, you were excited about this presentation.
I was excited about this, so thank you for a great presentation. I learned a lot, particularly about the software, like I learned a lot about the hardware, but I learned a lot about the software that you're using, and I particularly really enjoyed seeing the elementary, middle school, and high school examples. I really like that. So I think you guys did a really nice job in encapsulating like what the students are doing. The question that I still have on my mind is how much are they doing? And with the idea that more is not better, right? From a digital perspective, like the right amount is better, and I don't know what that right amount is, but I also don't know how much the students are doing. So the open question on my mind is how much time on average, and what is the range of times that, let's say, a first grader is spending in front of their screen, a fourth grader, a seventh grader and a 10th grader in their classroom. How many homework assignments are they doing versus on paper versus not on paper? So that's really what I'd love to hear. To the extent that you know that now, great. If not, then I'd love to hear it at some point in the future.
Yeah, I can speak to the fact that that's not a metric that we currently have, but in listening to you, and I know that Sean and I will probably have several conversations about it, there's a couple of ways that we can go about aggregating that information. I think we could put a survey out and work through the subcommittee from the PGCD to send out a survey to all teachers to talk about, where are you? You do it 3 days a week. How many homework assignments do you do on the computer? Twice a week. And we can do just a very kind of open-ended, but I think constructive survey where we can get a litmus test of what's happening. And I'd be happy to facilitate that and working with Sean, of course.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd also love to see some of the research. I don't know where we should be. I don't know where we are. I also don't know where we should be. So I'd love to hear your perspectives on where we should be. Like we are closer to where we should be than we were 5 years ago, but we don't want to overkill and spend 8 hours a day in front of screens.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where I don't know where is optimal, and I don't know where we are. So that's
Right.
what
I think, like we said earlier, it's a balance, and it's finding that right balance in the classroom. It's a balance of the amount of time that is being spent on devices versus learning paper and pencil skills as well. And I think it's also a balance of the right tools that are being used in the classroom, and that we're using it for student engagement, that we're using it for them to learn how to create on their own and develop skills that they're lifelong skills that they're going to utilize. I feel that at every level, obviously it's going to be different, and in every classroom it might be slightly different from one fourth grade classroom to another fourth grade classroom.
Or content area.
Or a content area, depending on what tools teachers feel comfortable with and things like that. So I do feel that I do sit on committees outside of Port. I do go to Nassau BOCES meetings with other instructional technology specialists. And what we're hearing is that we're all sort of on the same level currently, that we have seen this trend where during the pandemic, we saw this height of utilization. And then once we came back, we started to see that decline because we wanted to get back to the connections with our students. And now we're starting to see that increase again in utilization, because now that we're starting to, we've made those connections, now we're starting to say, okay, which tools are we gonna start to utilize again and start to see more use of?
Yeah, and I think, whether it's at the NASTEC meetings, which is all the directors of technology for Nassau County, or it's in instructional journals, or our own just, living this for 20 years. I think it's a fair statement to say, I think it's gonna be a hard thing to be able to identify best. And what I mean by that is because of what some of the things that Jackie was saying, that, I think we have a different threshold for pre-K than first grade. And I think that what content we would give them, what expectations they have, I think there's a lot of work that we can do, and we have done, where we can talk about core student competencies, where we did that several years ago, and it might be time to refresh that. We can continue to understand what's happening in the classroom by doing surveys that we just discussed. I do think, though, that this is a bit of a moving target. So being a person of, let's say, the math and science vertical, I'm very comfortable with things being, measurable and attainable, and you can tick that box and you can say you got that objective, that goal, and so on, or that metric. However, in this case, I think that it's less of a quantitative measurement than a qualitative measurement. And I think that when we talk about early child development or developmental psychology, or what we have heard over the last decade versus what we're hearing now in terms of what students need and don't need in terms of screen time, I think there's a lot of questions that we all, as a community, need to continue to do that research and reflect on. So I think what I'm saying is that there's things that we can do to get data, and even if it's qualitative, we can and we should do that. But I think it's also something that's going to happen organically a little bit as well. I think that that's important, not to put shade over our opportunity to do best practice, but that I think that best practice is going to evolve, because we've grown so much so quickly, and so has the world, that I think we have to catch up to ourselves a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't sound like a loose answer, but rather a concrete answer that has a component that we still don't know all the information, but there are actionable items that we can take.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just piggyback off a little bit of some of the comments that you both made, with a very good start about asking those best practice questions. I push back a little bit on the moving from too much screen time to paper and pencil, because I literally have in my notes before you finished, we went from a world where there was too much paper and pencil to now there's too many screens, or too much screen time. To me, it's the math example that you had up there with the manipulatives, or supposed manipulatives of tens and ones. I want the kids not on the screens. I want them with the, with the little blocks, the manipulative blocks that are about tens and ones and hundreds. So I'm concerned about that piece. And the extension of that is, we've made all these investments. Are we actually seeing a payoff, right? Are our students actually doing better? Have we invested all of this money thinking that our outcomes will improve? Is there a direct correlation? Calling, again, teachers / facilitators, we need the investment in the room for me is a teacher, right? And the other stuff is important, but it really is about the teacher and what the teacher understands about the student. I love that you talked about the data that a teacher can get from an activity that's been done independently in the classroom, because she can't be all over, or he can't be all over the room. So having that feedback is really super helpful. So I can, again, it's about how we can maximize the power of the technology without believing that that it's the be all and end all. And I don't think that you guys do at all. I'm hearing a lot of balance in the conversation, but it just brings up a lot of questions for me about, is our investment paying off, and how are our children doing more globally?
If I can, I mean, clearly, I don't think we had a choice, right? The
Oh,
pandemic
absolutely.
did. So did the investment pay off? Absolutely.
Mhm.
You know, what would instruction have looked like had this not happened? So that, we gotta keep that in the back of the mind. I don't want to do is back of our minds.
Oh, I'm already
But
thinking like pre-2013, when we
So-
started to ramp up years
beyond
and
that,
years ago.
I think a lot of it is about not so much the use of technology, but the effective use of technology. And introducing technology does not reduce a teacher's role to facilitator any more so than introducing a fancy pen is going to reduce that teacher's role. You know, the teacher, you know, when we talk about teachers facilitators, really able to facilitate a different level of instruction and impact on the students. When the students are then able to explore and do research on their own, look up documents on their own, and the teacher, rather than being the one providing those and putting them up on the screen, but the kids are out there and the teacher's providing, here's some links that you can check out, here's the Library of Congress, and here are these reliable sources. You know, the students are doing a level of research they really could not have done in the past. And that's effective use of technology, and I agree. Yeah, you know, if you're home late at night and you don't have your manipulatives, base 10 blocks, that's a tactile thing. Let the younger kids actually have a carton of base 10 blocks and work with them, work with math manipulatives, and experience those. Having them online is great once you're familiar with the concept of that. A lot of this is about effective use of technology. The number one investment in the classroom, as you said, is the teacher. Most important, and that's why the PD role is so critical. And there is, as I've said, this thirst in this district, it seems to me, for more professional development. The sessions that they gave during our conference day were sold out right away, right? Teachers signed up, they wanted them. So, you know, learning how to use what we have effectively in a balanced way, I think is a critical step as we're moving forward.
Sorry to jump in.
Do you have more questions?
Why don't you go ahead, and I'm sure I have a couple.
Okay, I'll start from the back because, so thank you both very much. I always I always felt the competency, and so given how much instruction has changed because of technology, I know we're in good hands in terms of knowledge and competency. So any questions I ask, just have that in your mind as a background. Sure. So I'll go from the back to the front. The computer-based testing, this is a mandate from the state, right? So I'm guessing we're not getting any funding for this. We're not getting any help from the state to transition from paper and pencil to computer-based testing. Do we know what the cost differential is going to be yet between having to purchase the paper test?
So you don't purchase any of the supplies we're all given. If anything, the cost differential will be found in a time differential. Administering the computer-based testing, once the process is set up, it's actually easier. The ordering, the collecting, the submissions of the data, we get the scores back quicker. Accommodations are provided more seamlessly and easily. So in many ways, it's a time saver on that end.
Does that mean it's a cost saver? Because the flip side of it is, before the pandemic, there were systematic problems with the computer testing as they were piloting throughout the state.
2016
There were a ton of crashes, 2016, 2017, 2018. Because as a parent, I was watching this in real time.
Yeah.
And I was very vested in what was happening. So I know that there were different time issues and retesting and stress on the kids. That was the most important thing to me, was the stress when you finished your test, you hit the button and the test disappeared,
Yeah.
right? So, I'm most concerned about Port Washington, and are we as a district prepared to really roll out the computer-based testing successfully with the minimum amount of disruption to the students, to the teaching, minimum stress level? That's really forward in my mind.
So what I will say to that, as someone who was involved in some of the original piloting, and yeah, I saw it firsthand, it was rough. The state has successfully had and implemented, districts have across the state implemented computer-based testing very successfully. 48 other states that have done that as well statewide. So it's here and it's been successfully implemented. There is a whole checklist that, we looked at originally, and Mr. Marlon is confident that facilities going through all the details. The state says you need X, Y, Z, and we're confident we have that. And additionally, our students have been doing computer-based testing through the NWEA, and they start as early as kindergarten. It's different, the process is different, and WEA primarily multiple choice, so on and so forth, but the notion of taking a test on a computer isn't foreign to either the students or the staff.
And, so now the computer science and digital fluency learning standards, is this for administrators such as yourselves? Or is this for students and teachers? Because what I'm wondering, and this is coming in September 2024, to me, there's a big difference between digital fluency, which I think all of our kids have at this point because they've been raised with these things, some of them since they were little, like little babies.
They know how to do things, but they don't really know how it works.
So this is about how it works, because the other side to me is also, when with my daughter taking a shop class, it was great that she could be taught to make something, but she also had to learn how to safely make something, right? She couldn't just pick up the saw and, right? So I look at technology the same way. There's a certain amount of safety and responsibility involved. Before you really should get to the learning part of it. And we're seeing this in the news more and more. I think the United States is finally catching up to where the European Union is on this. There was a segment on TikTok yesterday on one of the morning stations. And this has been going on for years and years and years, but we're not regulated, right, by the government enough. So there are things that are happening that are unsafe for our kids. They don't even know it's unsafe. You want to talk about data collection, wherever it is. So I'm wondering, are there any learning standards in terms of digital safety and digital responsibility happening within the district now?
Yes.
Yes.
Cyber citizenship as well. And we started that, we did that 3 years ago.
Yes.
We took a long, hard look at that whole segment of the curriculum, and we revitalized that, brought in new resources. Was it commonsense.org?
Yes, so commonsense.org, the librarians are infusing in their lessons, the digital literacy and citizenship lessons at all levels.
So, but this does encapsulate all of those things.
Okay.
Can I build on that for a second? Do you think you could offer that to parents at some point? I mean, like, I'd be interested, like,
We
my
may be
kids.
able to do it as a canned course through Otis, and then give parents access to Otis, and they can self-regulate their going through that course.
Okay.
We don't really have the personnel to train parents. That would be something that we'd have to talk a little bit about. But we can create canned courses where they can go in, authenticate, and then go through that course and go through the assessments and the gates, just like a real course would be, where they would gain, knowledge for sure.
I think just one or two, 40-minute lectures that are taught synchronously would be helpful in an evening.
We could do something like that, we could stream it as well.
That's what I mean, synchronously,
Sure.
right, in an evening. I don't know that people would necessarily come in physically, but because our kids, are gaining access to a bunch of things that many of us don't understand, and there are some guidelines, there's some smart stuff that people know how to do that not everybody knows how to do, that we want to learn, but we don't know the best sources, and I think a lot of us trust the district to give us good advice.
Okay.
I
That's
like that
interesting
idea a
feedback.
lot.
Thank you.
Yes. And more questions?
Yeah, please.
So, and I don't know if anybody can answer this right now, but, I know there was learning loss during the pandemic. Is there any learning loss going on by using, software and screens versus, I'll say the old-fashioned way, just teaching? So I guess my question is, for the littles, for example, for a while, we've, I don't know if it happened in this district, so I'm just asking a broad question, but there's been a return to manipulatives. I think parents were saying their children weren't learning how to hold the pencil properly, and there were OT issues because we had gone too far into using the devices, and we had either not realized or forgotten that manipulatives were important in motor skills, using the pencil was important, things like that. I don't know, Dr. Feeney, if this is a question for you, but have the teachers, and I guess it's about the return on investment as well, like the flip side of it, has there been any noticeable deficit, I suppose, is a word, where using technology too much has caused children not to develop in other ways? Okay.
So, I think that, when the federal government released, the nation's report card a few months ago, there was a lot of hand wringing, oh my goodness, scores have gone down, this is horrible. For the first time, we saw ACT scores went down, SAT scores went down. I think ACT scores were the lowest they've been in 30 years nationwide, right? So a lot of hand wringing, a lot of concern. And clearly we want to watch all of these metrics. Did the pandemic impact education? Of course it did. Of course it did. What was the alternative? Well, who knows? The alternative could have been worse, right? They didn't have to shut down the schools, so on and so forth. Not to get into, that whole debate again, but it did alter it. Now, what does it look like moving forward? So I was in a kindergarten classroom last week, and they've been using the manipulatives, and they've been, doing hands-on stuff. But the teacher also had a live, synchronous, online mathematics lesson that was really nicely taught by well-known teacher, well-known instructor, and sort of squeeze that into the curriculum. That was a great benefit, and the kids saw a different perspective. Even though they weren't quite at that unit, it was subtraction within groups. If you have 5, you take away 2. What do you have left? So you sort of a foundation of subtraction. So you've got the instructor doing it online. The kids are there. They're using their fingers to match up the 5, so on and so forth. That was a good activity to do, and it's great to have that as an option. That's what technology has brought us. That could not have been possible. It just was not as ubiquitous as it is now. So I think folks are sensitive that kids need more playtime outside, screens closed. I've been in classes where teachers have said, let's close the laptops. When I was a teacher, even because I used to teach as a principal, this is not a laptop time, close, we'll have a discussion. That's part of using technology the right way. So, they're not going anywhere, right? And
they're ubiquitous and
they're not. And the benefits do outweigh the limitations, but it's like anything else. Sometimes too much is too much. We all love, ice cream. Ice cream 3 times a day is not going to be the best thing. Use it and be mindful of it. Everything in moderation, including technology. We can't go all in. Kids need those motor skills. That's part of learning. And our elementary teachers know that really well. And I think many of them are very happy to move away where, a bunch of boxes on online teaching for elementary school, that was rough. So they're happy to be back where kids are playing and holding things. I've seen those activities in classrooms.
Yeah, I didn't mean during the pandemic, because we were stuck with that, that just,
Correct.
I mean, the whole world was stuck with it, so I understand, I was just wondering in general. Do we know if, and I think it's maybe out of your wheelhouse, but do we know, have there been any health or vision or mood issues? Because, and I realize I'm probably getting, it's tangential, but to me, it's a very important part of using technology, because studies are showing that there's a correlation between screen use and mental health, and screen use and feeling alienated, and all of those things. Are we noticing, and are we on the watch for anything within the district where screen use is correlating to mental health issues or to visual issues? Are we hearing anything from parents? And is there any type of professional development offered to the teachers to understand that there is a correlation between screen use and mental health and screen use and vision?
I think especially at the secondary level, teachers, how can you not see that, right? As parents, we see it, as teachers, we see it as well. And I don't know if researchers are quite ready to connect these things directly, but the rise of screen use and the social emotional challenges kids have had, the sleep challenges kids have had. Is it a coincidence it's all happening at the same time? Probably not. A lot of that screen use has nothing to do with what the teachers might be doing with the screen. I'm not sure how many of our teachers are really using TikTok as an instructional tool, but kids are on TikTok a lot, right? And that's probably one of the segments you saw that people are concerned about, that use. Social media, what it does to kids' self-esteem, social media, what it does to kids' recognition of who they are, what they are, how they connect with others. Guidance, certainly, PPS department, they talk about those issues, and there have been discussions, and we've had PD come in and present. Enough? Probably not. But those are all major issues. They're all related to technology, but not instructional technology.
Right, I understand.
I just wanted to clarify that.
But unfortunately, because for example, when I was growing up, we had the overhead projector, right? And it was in the classroom, it didn't go home.
Yeah.
Right, so in the classroom, we're encouraging use of the screens, and for kids, there may not even be a line, right? It all bleeds into the same thing. So,
To that end, we are actively engaged in conversations with the building principals to talk about the elementary building principals in this case, to talk about, we understand the pendulum came from here and went to there, but now we're looking for our new normal. Does it make sense to have pre-K through first grade kids bringing their devices to and fro every day?
That was my question about the backpacks.
Yeah, so we are engaged in that conversation. And I would say that it's everybody wants to make the right decision for instruction, for the students. Teachers want to make the right decisions for their instructional program. They want to make it so that it's not onerous for the parents. Because even if it's intermittent, it could be more onerous for a parent than if it was always happening, right? So we want to be sensitive to all of these things, and they're all new to us, quite honestly, because we weren't a one-to-one, and we came through the fire to do everything we could for students and teachers, and really just bent ourselves backwards to make teaching and learning and students and teachers the number one reason why we wake up in the morning. For 2 years, that was everything to us. Now we're trying to have those conversations rekindle the relationships, reinstitute, and make new what the structures we need. So I just wanted to share that piece because it is this thing that we're trying to find this right middle ground, and it may continue to change every year. And that's also what we're trying to understand is how do we become an organization where we can quickly pivot, because that's never been the strong suit of K-12 is quickly pivoting. But for technology, we have to be something that K-12s have never been before. And it's an interesting thing.
okay, so Now to get to the money aspect, so I was on the board when we approved the one-to-one, and I remember the numbers. Do you think, can you foresee,
Can you remind us the number?
the number was 1.3 million or 1.4 million, somewhere around there. And I know a lot of it was, we had a supply chain issue, and we had to spend more, and by the way, you did an amazing job with that, I said it to you then, and
Thank you.
say it again.
And I think it came in two ways, so I think it was more. I think at the end it was like 2.3, 2.4, but we're not talking about that number to do this work.
Right, so we're not gonna have that shock again, hopefully. But have we stabilized it all, or are we now just in a regular maintenance, except for the additional position? Are we now in more of a maintenance and support?
So I would say that the refresh cycles are more about maintenance and support. But that being said, so let's say if we were gonna proportionalize it, I would say that 80 to 90% is just what you're saying about maintenance and support. But I would still say 15 to 20% is growth, right? So if we're gonna go to touchscreen on Chromebooks, that's growth, and that's a different cost than a screen.
What's the value in that? What does that give us?
Well, I think that it's just another level of interactivity. It's another level of utilization of the tools that are there. I mean, it's difficult to say in one ubiquitous sentence what's the benefit. It comes into play at the lesson level, at the content, at the delivery level of what you're doing with the students and what you would like them to do. So I don't have like.
Some of the newer Chromebooks that come with the touch screen and a stylus, you fold in and you take notes on it like this, right? If you are in a math class, having a touch screen, especially if you can fold it into a tablet like this, makes it a lot easier, especially to take notes in a math class, if you're doing an online test, things like that. So those
So it's not just the latest and greatest, it's actual
that
value.
would be an example of some of the benefits.
We've never been a latest and greatest type of.
No, I know we haven't, I love that we have not been, so
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, so this was about looking at the new different ways of interacting, and whether it be like through the piece of software or some of the examples that Sean gave us, that would be one benefit, and would be that over and above our 85 to 90%, support and management. In addition, if we have more things happening, we might need more internet. If we need more internet, we may need more larger appliances that can handle that internet. If that's the case, then our firewall's not that be good. So it's like that. So it has to maintain the growth curve so that we stay competitive in the space, so our students get the best experiences and it supports instruction. But we're not a bleeding edge district. That's not what we're about. I believe stability is more important than cutting edge, although there are times where you have to reach into those areas, like STEM and ed tech and things like this.
We're getting late.
Yeah.
I have one more question, you have one more question, we didn't get to the community. So,
Thank you for indulging me.
All right, thank you. So I'm a data person, and so there's two things. I mean, the first thing you said was, let's do a survey. I'd love to see a survey of how much students, I'd love to see a survey from, maybe the students, but also the teachers. How much the students think they're on and how much the teachers think they're on. But also, I wonder if you guys have the ability, since they're all district devices, to basically go software by software, classroom by classroom, and say, how much are people on this software? How much are people on this software? How much are people, right? I get a note from my phone every week that says, Adam, you were on for 3 hours and 22 minutes a day, or whatever the number is. I imagine that we can cut that data relatively easily from the devices. Is that true?
I don't know. I have to look at it. We've never really tried to aggregate utilization at the client side.
Okay.
So that would be something that we have to look into. I know that there are data pieces, whether it be iPads or Chromebooks, and let me do some homework in that space, no problem. In terms of going down to the software level, yes, there's utilization reports, but I guess I would want to have more of a conversation on how we organize that data, because I don't know that it's the best thing is to do it by classroom or anything, but maybe by grade level, or we need to understand what the best way is to present the information.
Okay,
But we can do a lot, I think, in that space.
okay. Let me just follow up, which is that I think the themes that you've seen from the three of us are similar, which is we want to use technology, but we don't want to overuse technology. And I think what we saw was great examples of good uses of technology, but what we haven't seen is exactly how much we're using. And so I think I speak just for myself, but like, I'm not afraid to cut the data. Like I would say, I'm requesting a cut of the data to find an average, how much first graders are using their iPads, how much second graders are using their iPads, maybe by school, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
And ninth graders, the whole.
Understood. You're welcome.
So I have a on-the-ground kind of question in terms of backpacks and the carrying to and from. Anecdotally, I'm hearing about that they have to go home every night because there's no place to secure them if they're left in school and to be charged, et cetera, even if they're not being used. And we've heard for years, free one-to-one, how the backpacks weigh more than the children. And literally there's research across the country about, damage to children's backs, et cetera. So is there a way that these could stay at school if they're not needed at home? I know that's a massive.
No, there isn't a way. Only, we're looking at pre-K through first, for those little ones, who carry iPads. But no, there isn't a way in every classroom, there's no way to secure them, keep them charged. And it would be a huge expense to the district. Also, traditionally speaking, and Sean could speak about his prior district, but it's always been kind of a ubiquitous expectation in the K through 12 space that the students take these devices back and forth. I think that we can have more conversations at the building level with building principals, as well as the data to help understand if it's necessary every day and what that looks like. But that's an instructional decision that happens in every classroom. So it's difficult I would imagine it's going to be difficult for a building principal or any administrator to kind of create ubiquity in that area because of the dynamic process that is the instructional process in every classroom. So the most I can say at this point really is just that we are, we understand, even in the middle school, they're not allowed to carry their backpacks through the hallways, which is a problem unto itself for the security of the device. Not so much that someone take it, but if it doesn't fall on the ground. But we are looking at pre-K through first to see if we can, at the lowest, at the primary level, support those students to not have to carry it every day. But these are preliminary conversations with the building principals and then turnkey their conversations with their building teachers to understand, because at the end of the day, we don't want to establish a practice that doesn't support instruction. That's really what we're all about. We don't dictate much. We only try to support, and we try to instigate conversations that might be hard to have, but are important to have because the product of that conversation would, again, support instruction and teachers. So I hear what you're saying. I don't have more of an answer at this point other than where we are focusing our attention for this year.
Can we open it to the community? Starting with board members?
I was actually gonna, if you don't mind for just a second, I'm gonna request that this is a bigger, broader topic that all board members should potentially be involved with, because I think I've written down questions that concern policy issues, textbooks. It has a curricular impact about long-term and what we are looking at from a portrait of a graduate and what kind of educational technology manufacturing vocational arts and expanding them that way. And these are long-term planning topics. So I actually would love to have this as a board conversation, using this as a springboard, as our starting point and asking some of these questions. There's privacy issues, work product issues for staff and students, digital portfolios you're keeping. So I don't, that's my big broad question. I don't mean to usurp over you, but maybe we have this as a big discussion for the board and carry
I
it
know
forward.
Dr. Hines and Dr. Cooney have been discussing one or two other meetings that are beyond this committee, right? So that you were saying that there's a couple of levels to this conversation. Yeah, I think they had already talked about that stuff.
Oh, so it's already on our agenda. We're gonna discuss this as a board?
I don't know how they came to a plan.
I don't know if it's on the agenda, I don't set your agenda, of course, but
Okay.
this is, we recognize this is one piece of a much larger discussion. There's very little discussion of any financial impact of
Right,
anything here.
I'm not even asking the
Right,
financial
right.
side of
Well,
it all,
that's-
yes.
That in itself is a whole 2-hour presentation.
100%.
Right.
But I mean, like policies, for a policy standpoint, we have a policy on textbooks. We have the ability to review as a board textbooks that are newly introduced. You showed us Nearpod content that's being utilized as a textbook, but the board isn't approving that. Do we need to update our policy so that we are incorporated into that process? Are textbooks now becoming more obsolete because these types of instructional tools are being brought into the education? Are we as a board comfortable with moving in that direction? These are the conversations that before we get too far down this road, I think that the board should be having as a whole and asking these questions. And to your point, Adam, about screen time, we have some members that are expressing, I don't know where all the members feel, and we don't even have enough data, because again, beautiful that you guys did this, but you had to do this on an emergent basis, and as you said, we've grown so quickly, and as happens with technology, everyone grows quickly, and then you don't have time to catch up, right? And so we're in that catch-up phase, and we should, as a board, say, what do we need to do to catch up even on our side as to what we need to look at, and help plan accordingly from that standpoint. So I kind of asked my questions, and I kind of really would love to have a broader conversation about it. So I will share that with Adam Smith, and we'll share that with Dr. Hunt.
Rachel? First, Mr. Maloney, I want to thank you, and I know I say this every time we talk to you, but I think it's really important to note publicly again, you're approaching 9-10 years here, 9,
This is the
I think?
beginning of my 10th year.
The beginning of your 10th.
Yeah, middle of my
Where we are now is because of you. I know, 9 years ago, we were in the dark ages, we had none of this. And the things that you have described and told us this morning are amazing tools for teachers to have. I think that the comment you made earlier about how this is complicated and it's sort of shifting is apt, because even just our understanding of what technology, the role it should play for children has shifted. So a decade ago, as a parent, you were either a parent who wasn't paying attention at all to whether screen time was bad and your kids could do whatever they wanted, or you were a parent who was paying attention and screen time was bad,
Yes.
right? All screen time was bad, your kid wasn't watching anything. And now I think that over the last, 5+ years, we have, through science, a much deeper understanding of this. And I think it's important to note for this conversation that not all screen time is the same. We can't just use the words screen time and look at screen time and pick a number cutoff, because we now understand there's a difference between a child passively watching a show versus watching a show and then discussing the issues in the show with somebody and what they learned from the show, versus an interactive kind of screen time where they're using it as a tool to learn, or the teacher is using it as something to demonstrate. And these are different things that have different impact on children's brains, and our understanding of it is still evolving. So, again, using like the parent model, right, as my understanding is involved, I went from no screen time to your screen time has to have redeeming value. You're going to be doing it, you're going to learn something from it, it's going to be a tool, there's going to be a good thing for it. However, everything you've described for us is educational. Everything you've described has redeeming value. So then I think if you're phrasing the question, it's important to know that the question is really, what is the right balance of purely educational, wonderful technology versus turning a screen off, right? And I think we all agree there should be a balance, but we're not offering anything here that's bad for kids. It's just that we all know that they shouldn't be doing just this all day, every day. And I think then the real question is, are we giving our teachers the right professional development and the right tools to be able to evaluate in their classrooms when is the right moment to pick this versus picking something else? And one of the technologies that actually, I think you didn't put on the example that I would say is worth noting is like, in our elementary school, our teachers have GoNoodle, right? These are videos with music and dance routines. If you just describe that to somebody without talking about the context and looking about the ways kids teach it, sounds like TikTok, right? Sounds like no value, but the way it's rolled out in our elementary school and the purpose of it is teachers use this for wiggle breaks in the elementary school. They suddenly have a tool that is screen time, right? But it's a 3-minute chunk of screen time that allows them to do something that maybe not all teachers would
It's a shared group experience as well. They do it as a class. I walked in on a couple of those. They're fun.
So I've seen in my elementary school, the way teachers use this is like the kids stop paying attention, they're fidgeting more. Maybe they had indoor recess that day. They've lost them. The teacher has lost them and they say, okay, guys, looks like we need a wiggle break. They put on this GoNoodle for 3 minutes. The kids all stand up and dance. The teacher dances with them. And then they go back to learning and they're able to do so more effectively because of this silly little screen time educational tool that we wouldn't want to take away. Because maybe some teachers would just put a song on their computer and lead them in a dance, but probably the majority of them wouldn't, right? And this gives the teachers something that they didn't have before. So I think I'm all for asking for data, but we have to be really careful about how we ask for the data and what data we're looking at and how we can't cut it in a purely quantitative way. And it's a totally separate issue and separate question about whether or not the school district should be trying to give parents guidance on what kind of technology kids should have access to outside of the school day. And I know we've tried, but I think a lot of parents don't want to hear it, and they think that that's a personal question, whether their kid has access to Snapchat or TikTok or whatever. The backpacks, I also think is a really important issue, but I don't think that it's necessarily Mr. Maloney and Mr. Gilmartin issue. I think it's Dr. Feeney on up, and it's something that we need to look at elementary and middle school and high school. My middle school kids' backpacks is so heavy that it's heavy for me to carry, and they weigh 95 pounds. Like, we're doing physical damage to our children with backpacks. But it's not just the computers, and I would say the computer is actually only a couple pounds of it. It's the textbooks, it's the requirements for what they need to bring back and forth, and what size their binders need to be, and the calculator, and the art supplies. There's a lot more to it. It's complex. I do have a couple other questions, but you tell me if you want to come back to me, if you want to cut me off.
Dr. Feeney, we have 3 staff with, and I must go. What do you do?
I think maybe we've got a few minutes. Let's wrap up in a quarter up. Gives us 3 minutes.
I can stay for 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Rachel, what's your favorite question?
I mean, I think it really, even before you were going down this road, the question is really the teacher guidance and whether or not we even think they need more guidance, because remember, we're dealing with professionals, right? We're dealing with experts in teaching who in the elementary school know manipulatives are important, right? What I see in my first grade classroom, to use the example you put up, where you showed that they would be able to put things in the hundreds and the tens and on the screen, right? I think our first grade teachers would do that on the screen, and then there'd be manipulatives too in the small groups. So it's a way to have the whole class be able to see something. So are we doing what we need to be doing to make sure the teachers understand and can use what's available to them, and also are able to evaluate how to use it with the, what we're calling the old-fashioned way in a way that's most effective for kids, that it's not just, this is the new shiny object, so I just do this. Or
Yeah, I mean,
I don't use this at all.
Yeah. From my perspective, I mean, again, because it's been a continuum, although we've had tremendous growth over the pandemic, but it's been a continuum, it's been a grassroots process. We've worked with teachers to develop the buy-in. Hasn't been a top-down. We have evolved together. We do have an active subcommittee, technology subcommittee through the PGCD. So I think that we are doing a great job. I think that teachers do have that tact to be able to sort the trees from the forest and be able to make critical decisions, not only in a whole group instruction, which we often think because that's what our instructional experiences were growing up, but more than that, really at the individual level, at the just-in-time level, at the mini lesson level, and then the delivery of a piece of content that is just to shore it up and then routes it right back into assessment, right? I think that these are professionals who have their art and their craft well in hand, and I think it's our job to say, hey, listen, this is a nice shiny thing, let's show you how to use it. But I think it's also the teachers, and this is what we're formalizing, to have feedback to us to say that this is what we think we need, just as much as us coming to say, hey, we have some great ideas we'd like to share with you. Can you give us feedback and tell us, should we pilot it here? Should we play with it in this way? Everything has that organic relationship between the people who are going to use it, the thing that we're talking about, and our vocation, which is to support them in any way possible utilizing this technology. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I do feel very strongly that we've done a great job. Growth, is it possible for more growth? Yes. Is there more skills? Yes. Is there more support? Yes. Do we wish we had more professional development time with our teachers? Absolutely. So there's definitely more work to be done.
Thank you.
Can I have one request?
Okay.
It doesn't have to be responded to, but Dr. Block, you like this. The screen that says software usage, you have broken down by school, usage by students and the usage by teachers. And I know these are percentages, so it's hard to compare because some of these schools are smaller than other schools, so the absolute numbers, you can't just compare the absolute numbers, it doesn't give you like the percentage. But I'm wondering if at some point we can take a deeper look at this, because one of our issues has been consistency, or one of our themes really as a board has been consistency. And I don't think everything needs to be exactly the same, but I think if we think that a lot of these resources we have available have redeeming educational value, and I think they do, I think there's a lot of amazing resources here, I think we should really be looking at if by school, we have the same culture going on. Are people adopting this in an approximately equal way and making use of what we have available?
Okay, I think that that's reasonable, and I think that we're also gonna have to correlate, just quickly, because there could be two different softwares that might do the same thing, but one person likes to use this one more. So we just have to think all that thing through, but I understand what you're saying, and I'm happy to provide and refine it over time. So if I don't get it right the first time, please know that I'll continue to work to make it right.
I mean, I will say, like, I trust you immensely, so I think that for me, that could take the form of the two of you coming to the board and saying, we looked at it and we think at this school, we need to get a little more PD in there because the teachers aren't getting that they could be using these things and maybe they want to more. Or that you could say, look, they're using the various tools in a way that's like close enough and we believe in teacher freedom and it means the resources are available, they can use the resources,
Right.
they're doing it.
Yeah, I think we could, just visually, I'm saying like a scattergram, we can show those clusters very quickly and we can, no problem, we can do it.
Thank you very
You're
much
welcome.
for this. Our next meeting is January 6th, and we will be discussing college admissions and happy holidays and a safe and restful break to y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't.
Oh, yes.
There's a process by which the teachers have to go through that software, can they just do it on their own, or is there some sort of system in place?